All right. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Rebecca Balin, campaign manager with Invest in Our New York, a coalition of over 170 organizations who have been fighting to end tax breaks for the rich and invest in our communities. And today we are so excited to stand here and say it's a beautiful day to tax the rich. Today we have won over $4 billion in new progressive annual revenue for our public schools, for tenants, and for, even most importantly, workers who have been excluded from any federal benefits and stimulus. And that's just a basic need. We shouldn't be here fighting for this, for basic humanity. But because of the hard work of everybody here today and many more impacted workers, impacted New Yorkers, legislators, and advocates and organizers, we fought and we won some basic equity in New York State, and this is just the beginning of a new day in Albany. We're going to come back because we still haven't won enough funding for SUNY and CUNY. We haven't won enough for homeless New Yorkers and enough revenue so that we can stop fighting each other for scraps, because the rich are still enjoying tax breaks while millions of New Yorkers suffer. So I just want to take another second to just acknowledge the incredible hard work of our coalition, the Working Families Party, AQE, Strong Economy for All, Empire Indivisible, and the Generalists, Vocal, Make the Road, New York Communities for Change, Citizen Action.
Yeah.
Oh, DSA, right, I'm sorry. DSA. I said Vocal, don't worry, I always got Vocal. And many, many more. And so first I'd love to introduce Sochi Namaka at Working Families Party.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sochi Namaka. I'm the state director of the New York Working Families Party. I'm thrilled to be here on this sunny day to celebrate a budget that centers working people and ensures that all of our communities can be invested in and thrive. I'm proud of this amazing coalition of lawmakers, of advocates, of grassroots New Yorkers who've been working overtime to help win this historic budget. A critical first step towards winning a New York that truly works for all of us. Let's be clear, this year's budget belongs to the people. It was not decided by three men in a closed room. It was not delivered by strong-armed executive bullying. Instead, it is a product of a Democratic supermajority in the legislature, of a new rising crop of progressive leaders, and the thousands of grassroots New Yorkers across the state who demanded a budget that finally delivers for all of our communities. I want to thank the tireless and decades-long work of our comrades at Alliance for Quality Education and legislative leaders like Senator Robert Jackson. That funding means investments, major investments in education, including statewide universal pre-K and finally fully funding our foundation aid. This budget also creates a first in the nation, first in the state fund for excluded workers, with massive kudos to Senator Jessica Ramos, Make the Road New York, New York's Community for Change, and the dozens of excluded workers who took their own lives and put them out on the table here and went for a weeks-long hunger strike to show just the urgency and the severity of this crisis. We know that budgets are moral documents, and we insisted that we had one that centered care and investment for all New Yorkers, regardless of immigration status, regardless of where they live, regardless of how old they are, but that centered full care and full investment. That is what our budgets should reflect: who we value, who we choose to take care of, who helps run our economy, and who invests in a full and thriving New York. None of this could have happened had it not been for droves of New Yorkers who took to the streets and took to the ballot box last year in support of transformative investment, and the progressive leaders that they sent to Albany to fight for that investment. This budget proves that when working families, Democrats, when progressive leaders win office, working New Yorkers will feel material difference and real benefit in their lives. That's right.
That's right.
In a moment of exceptional economic and political crisis, this budget is an important first step, and we also know that it still leaves too many of us behind. That's because millions of New Yorkers, from Buffalo to the Bronx, are still unemployed, they're still hungry, they're still facing eviction. Many of them have gone a full year without any relief. We know that the rich are still getting richer, while the crisis of homelessness and overdose is soaring and continue to worsen. Next year, we'll face another deficit, another economic crisis, and without the help of federal aid. We know that we have to keep pushing for more. This budget is not the end of our work. In fact, it's a beginning. From the ballot box to the streets, we'll all continue to fight for a budget that works for all New Yorkers, to fully and permanently fund the resources that fill our public good. Today, we take a pause to thank, to applaud, and keep fighting with our amazing coalition, the legislative leaders, our advocates, our grassroots New Yorkers, and tomorrow the fight begins anew to build and deliver a New York that works for all of us. Thank you.
And now please welcome the Senate Deputy Leader who brought us here today, who has been fighting with us from day one, who I've personally worked with when I was at the Riders Alliance on transit issues. My favorite, Senator Gianaris.
I want to take a moment and let the other legislators savor what Rebecca just said. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is a well-deserved pat on the back for all the people you see standing up here, because make no mistake, what happened with this budget this year was not the result of a 3-month campaign. It was the result of years of effort. Years. These were not 10 random pieces of legislation. This was the result of a movement that is sweeping the state bit by bit and piece by piece. Because this would not have happened had we not taken the Senate majority a couple years back. It would not have happened if we did not defeat the IDC a couple years back. It would not have happened if we didn't get the supermajority in this last election that just happened. And it would not have happened without the amazing leadership of one Andrea Stewart Cousins, who took this Senate to amazing places. We had some great champions in the Assembly who have been waiting for this moment, waiting for us to get here. And so I want to appreciate their hard work through the years and their suffering when the Senate Republicans were in charge. But we did something amazing yesterday. We stepped forward and said it's time to change the direction of this state. It's time to make sure that those who are doing well, who, by the way, did even better while everybody else was suffering over the last year, are asked to do their fair share to help us recover. And you heard Sochi say it. She's absolutely right. These are the first steps, not the last, because we have a lot more work to do. But establishing that fund for excluded workers is unbelievable. Finally dealing and complying with the CFE decision is unbelievable. The rental assistance program we set up is amazing. Small business relief. Gustavo Rivera had mentioned to me earlier, he says he was reading things that there were so many accomplishments in this budget. We were finding out things. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll let him do it. But needless to say, we're incredibly proud of this product. We're incredibly proud of both houses of the legislature that stepped in to make it happen. And we've only just begun. So strap in and get ready, because we have a lot more work to do, and the people up here are going to help us do it. So thank you all very, very much.
Just to be clear, Alex made me say I was. And to point out, to make that point very clear, that we are going to continue fighting. This is the beginning, not the end. I want to introduce Jasmine Gripper of AQE.
I am so excited about this budget. We have taxed the rich so we can finally fully fund our schools. For years, parents, students, and educators have been knocking on these doors in Albany, demanding funding for our schools, and finally that is made possible thanks to the Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins and Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, demanding a just budget that tax the rich and prioritize our children. Because of this investment, we will have smaller class sizes. Because of this investment, we will actually have science labs in all of our high schools. We will finally have art and music and sports for all kids. We will finally have robust education in every community. This is what justice looks like. We are glad the funding is on the way. We will be working in our communities to make sure it gets spent on the right programming, but our children are excited. The parents are excited. They were on a Zoom call last night, literally in tears about this victory. Because so many nights we didn't think it was possible, so many budgets where we didn't get it right. And finally, the students of New York State are getting justice. And so that's what it means when we say progressive taxation. This is what it means when we say a moral and just budget. It means our children get the things that they need. We are excited about this budget, and we can't wait to continue to do more. Thank you.
And a huge congratulations to AQE, who has been fighting for too long for all of this. And now, please welcome Senator Robert Jackson, the sponsor of our progressive income tax.
Mr. CFE!
Good morning, New York! Well, let me just say, it's a beautiful morning in Albany. My daughter saw me yesterday out here at a press conference. I had on my running stuff. She said, "Dad, you know, people look a little better. You have the same stuff on, so why don't you please put on a shirt and tie?" So this morning, I decided to put on this shirt and tie this morning. So let me just thank all of you for being here this morning on behalf of all of the people of our great state. And I've said it's not only about New York City, it's about the entire state. It's about the big cities. It's about the suburban areas. It's about the rural areas. It's about all New Yorkers. That's what the fight for the campaign for fiscal equity has been about. It's about all of our children, like this young man here, and other children around the state of New York. Because every child, no matter who you are, I've said it before, whether you're black or white, Latinx or Asian, red, green or blue, whether you're rich or you're poor, everyone is guaranteed the opportunity for a sound basic education here in New York. That's what the Constitution says that they're entitled to. And that's what this struggle has been about for years. And now we finally have the money. We have to make sure that it goes where it's needed to ensure that our children get that education. And there's many other things, and this is like a puzzle. You put it together and you can see the whole picture. I'm just one part of it with many others to make it work. I say to all of you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
And now, Gustavo Rivera, who not only leads with kindness and warmth, but also is our sponsor of our capital gains tax, which we're going to win next.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Now, I'm going to try to do this considering that Gianaris kind of stole my thunder. He kind of killed my bit a little bit, but let's go. So I had a really weird situation last night. Usually when we finish these, we put together, all of the different senators and assembly members, we put together these press releases where we talk about the things that we were able to achieve, the things that we were not able to achieve. And so I'm looking at this list, and I'm looking down. I had to call my chief of staff, and I'm like, did we actually do all this stuff? And I did that because I was paying so much attention to, there's a couple of things that I think are immense, whether it was the Excluded Workers Fund, and I would think we should take a second to give them. They have now broken fast because they know that we won something historic last night, whether it was the historic taxes, which are certainly not enough, but are a great start, $4.5 billion in new revenue. Whether it was all of the cuts that the executive insisted needed to be done to the Medicaid budget that we were able to push back thanks to the strength of our conference, the strength of our leader, and the strength of our colleagues in the outside as well. All of that, there is a lot to be proud of in this budget, and I know that it could not have been done without the folks behind us. And the thing is that each one of these folks is not just one person. They represent organizations and coalitions of New Yorkers all across the state.
who recognize that for way too damn long, this state has not done right by the people of this state. They have not done right by the children of this state. They have not done right by the folks who need Medicaid in this state. They have not done right for the people who drive in this state. They have not done right for the people that get in buses and trains of this state. And so, this is the beginning of a beautiful thing. See? See the sun? And so as I stand here with all these folks celebrating and hoping I don't fall asleep while I'm driving to the city, I will say that I cannot wait to get back here because we have much to do, like the capital gains tax, like the estate tax, right, Jabari? Where you at? I was like all of these things, because this is about investing in all of these things which give us prosperity as a state. It is not about getting a couple of people being richer and richer and richer. It is about taking those resources and investing them so that we can have prosperity for everybody. I look forward to getting it done. Thank you.
And speaking of that capital gains tax, we have our sponsor in the Assembly and somebody who's been fighting to tax the rich and fund our communities, Assemblymember Ron Kim.
Thank you all. Give it up to the organizers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. We went from movement and we took a couple of steps toward liberation this week. That's what this budget is about. It's about striving toward a freedom budget that liberates people of color, minorities, immigrants, marginalized communities who have not received a dime of investment for the last 20, 30, 40 years. We changed that this week. We changed the culture of what economic development should look like, not for big corporations, for people of New York. Every economist for the last 10 years had come out and proved that when you invest in people, we recover quickly and there's real economic growth. Yeah. But time after time after time, because of people like the second floor, we continue to double, triple down on corporate welfare, corporate giveaways over investing in our children. But that is no more. We are fully funding foundation aid. We are supporting undocumented immigrants, excluded workers, where we know the return on the investment is 2, 3, 4 times back into local economies. Make no mistake, it's not a compassion plea. It is an economic investment to invest in our immigrant communities. That's right. But imagine if we had $1 billion for NYCHA. Imagine we had $2 billion to end homelessness. Imagine we had $5 billion to tackle everything else in between. So we're not done yet. So we have capital gains. We have the heirs tax. We need to raise corporate rates. We're not done. Stock transfers, financial transaction tax, not just stocks. And the reason why we fought so hard to offer a comprehensive package is because the rich does not flee. The capital doesn't flee, despite whatever you hear in that chamber. What they do is dodge paying taxes. So unless we tackle all those things, capital, corporate, trust, they will continue to avoid paying taxes. So our fight is just beginning. We're going to get it done. Before I leave, I want to just really acknowledge my colleagues, the new members. Amanda Septimo, Jessica Gonzalez-Rojas. Without the new cohort of young women leaders in the Assembly, we wouldn't be here. We would not be here. Make no mistake, the progressive young women of color have made this possible in the State Assembly. So thank you all so much, and let's get to work.
Amazing. So we have a lot of folks to hear from, but first we want to make sure that you hear from our bill sponsors, and Senator Jabari Brisport sponsored the heirs tax, which again, we will win.
So good morning, y'all. My name is State Senator Jabari Brisport. I'm new too. I didn't get an introduction from Assemblymember Ron Kim, but that's okay. I'll just introduce myself. I get it. I love you. Listen, I got here about 3 months ago, and it has been the wildest 3 months of my life, and we're not done yet. This is bittersweet to me, because the amount we're raising, 3, 4, 5 billion, what is that to the billionaires? What is that to the people that made 77 billion plus in the first few months of the pandemic? What is that, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I'm a former math teacher, but I'm running on a little bit of sleep right now, so I don't have the exact number for you, but what is that to them? Pennies, right? So this is not the victory that New York deserves or that it's owed, but it is a victory nonetheless. Hard won. Fought by this incredible coalition, my incredible colleagues behind me, those that are not here, the incredible advocates, the Invest in Our New York coalition. And I have never thanked the press before, ever, in a press conference. But thank you for being here, and thank you for amplifying our message. It's hard to believe that just 4 months ago we were staring in the face of something truly terrifying. Deep austerity. Further cuts to education, teachers being laid off, cuts to transportation, no help for the homeless, no help for people who were behind on rent, a wave of evictions coming, nothing devoted to helping out healthcare. It was scary. And in response, we pushed back with the most aggressive, progressive revenue package ever proposed in New York's history. And did we get exactly what we wanted? No. But we did win the most aggressive, progressive tax proposition, ever in New York's history. So we got to keep going further. Like people said, this is not the end. To any billionaires watching, we're coming for more. There is more to do, because I won't rest with a budget that lets income inequality keep expanding. I won't rest with a budget that still says homeless people are going to continue to exist in this state. I won't rest with a budget that says there'll still be uninsured. I won't rest with a budget that says there will still be some marginalized people that are hurting. I will not rest until we end that, because we have everything we need to do to end the marginalization of people in this state, and we are going to do it. If we didn't do it this year, we're doing it in 2022. We're coming again. We're fighting harder. Let's go.
Joined this campaign in October, and I'm so honored to be part of the incredible coalition and organizations who guided me through this process and guide us all through this process, and particularly one person who told me about this job and who has spent the last, I don't even know, decade busting myths against millionaires' migration and making the case for why we need to raise this revenue, and just has had incredible endurance on this campaign. Please welcome Michael Kink, Strong Economy for All.
Thanks, Rebecca, and thank you for your amazing leadership of this powerful campaign. You know, the Forbes billionaires list came out on Monday, and New York has 120 billionaires who got over $156 billion richer in the last year. While our state suffered, while millions went without jobs and income, their wealth grew. And as Ron said, for the last 25, 30 years, this state has looked after the interests of the billionaires. And starting today, this state is looking after the interests of regular New Yorkers. We're here to thank our champions, our bill sponsors, the legislative leaders, Leader Stewart Cousins and Speaker Hastie, and we're here to thank the millions of New Yorkers who organized and called and wrote and voted for change. And to celebrate the fact that this budget is responsive to regular people's needs. 9 out of 10 New Yorkers want to tax the rich, to prevent budget cuts and invest in our communities. After decades of disinvestment, Our communities need these investments. Our communities want these investments. And now our communities will get these investments. And I will say, before this is done, the Invest in Our New York package has 6 bills. Many of the sponsors are here. And Senator Brisport and Assemblymember Meneas sponsor one other bill. There is a constitutional amendment to allow a wealth tax in the New York State Constitution. And in 1938, corporate lawyers and lobbyists for the rich wrote the New York Constitution and barred a pennies on the dollar wealth tax of the type that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have passed, have championed. And before this campaign is done, we are going to pass that amendment, and we are going to write into the Constitution of the state of New York basic fairness that will fund our budgets for generations to come. It started today. It started with this campaign. Thank you.
It started with those amazing glasses. As Mike said, this would not have happened unless directly impacted folks have been fighting. I'd like to introduce Casey from Vocal.
You stand right there. Good morning. My name is Casey Hayner, and I'm a leader with Albany chapter of Vocals New York. I've been fighting with my comrades for the past few months, meeting with elected officials, calling, emailing, putting in work. So, you know, I just want to say that this is a big step forward, one that our leaders and our whole community organized for. And we are so proud of that. We want to thank our legislators who fought alongside us to ensure the governor did not block taxes entirely, to ensure we raised taxes to build a better future for New Yorkers. We deeply appreciate you. But some critical things are missing from this budget. This budget provides no meaningful relief to over 92,000 New Yorkers sleeping in shelters and streets across the state, nor did it make critical investments to reverse historically high overdose deaths that continue to grow. We can't leave these issues behind. I'm here to plead with you to keep fighting with us. Don't look away, and don't forget the people who will not be helped by this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Now they're leaving us. Please, thank you so much, and please welcome Rosemary Rivera, Co-Executive Director of Citizen Action.
Good morning. Casey, thank you for that. This reminds us of what this is all about. And, you know, I kind of feel very nostalgic today. When I started this fight, I'm also the board chair of the Alliance for Quality Education today. But I started as a parent and someone who was directly impacted. And I had this vision. Maybe it was naive at the time, but I was like, oh my goodness, we could do so much change. If 90% of the people want to change, and they come to Albany and they speak to their legislators and they push for change, then of course we're going to get what we want, because we're a democracy that cares about the humanity of people, right? But what I learned throughout the years of becoming active and civically engaged was that it's all about the Benjamins, baby. It's all about the Benjamins. And that actually capitalism began to trump democracy, and it trumped humanity. It is not fun to be homeless. It is not fun to try and get your child the right education. It is not fun to understand that you are excluded from what everyone else has. These aren't things that make us proud to be New Yorkers. Investing in New York, every New Yorker is worth it. And then when I came to the Capitol, oh my goodness, I would be pitted. Oh, well, do you want me to fund health care for the older people, or do you want me to fund education? I can only do so much. This is about visionary leadership. This is about the sea of change that has happened in New York State, where we're helping to elect progressive champions that you see behind us. While we also understand that there is a stick in the mud, yes, Gustavo, you said it, on the second floor, that has stopped things. Neoliberalism has no space. Don't tell me that that the wealthy are going to flee. Don't tell me that jobs are going to be killed and these are job killers. Instead, think about the people across the country who will swarm back if they know that there is universal childcare, if they know that there is actually good education, if they know that they don't have to worry about being put out of their homes. People will flood here, and guess what? Those companies will follow if they have good workspaces, etc. So as a directly impacted person who has been broken by multiple systems in the state of New York, I am finally re-energized to do and to continue the work in New York State. I finally see some hope. I finally see that it is every single person in New York State that brought this victory. And press, I love you, but tomorrow it better not say, Governor Cuomo brought this home, because that ain't right. Thank you.
And we have two of those new folks who have been fighting so hard, so please stay to listen to them. Assembly Member Jessica Gonzalez Rojas.
Welcome to the class that made numbers sexy. My name is Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. I am a new representative from the 34th District in Queens. And I ran for office because I was sick of the status quo. I was sick of our legislators accepting an austerity budget that harmed our communities, our Black, brown, immigrant communities who have been impacted by the years and years and years of disinvestment in our communities. No more. No more. And I have to thank all my colleagues here. We fought like hell on Zooms, in these buildings, against what the governor proposed. It was immoral. And as was mentioned, the budget is a moral document. And we have to fight for our values, and we have to fight for our vision, and we have to fight for our community. And we did. And I'm so, so proud to be here. But let me tell you, it would not have been done without you all. Without all the activists, all the advocates, all the impacted families that had come here year after year after year to fight and demand some dignity. Thank you. As a mom, thank you. As a mom, my school was owed $12 million. I cannot wait to go back to my school and tell the parents and the teachers and the principal that we fought for them and we're gonna deliver. So I'm so proud to be here, but the fight is not over. People are still hungry. People are still homeless. People are still without jobs. Our small businesses are still struggling. So as we said, this is just the beginning. We will continue to fight. We will continue to fight this session, and we'll continue to build a movement that's gonna get us to where we need to be next year. And I told my team this week that joy is an act of resistance. So while we have to continue to fight, today we're gonna celebrate. Thank you so much.
And please welcome Assemblymember Amanda Septimo.
Good morning, Albany. Jabari said he was tired, but I'm actually tired, so won't be getting that. This has been an exhausting, demoralizing, difficult, at every single turn fight. And fight is exactly the word to describe it, because we have had to fight to what feels like the death in the war room, on Twitter, on Zoom, and all these other places in ways that are really puzzling and challenge your sense of what is right. Because when you come to a place like Albany, at every turn, there are people who try to convince you that you are wrong to be advocating for your community, who try to convince you that somehow you are asking too much when you are demanding that we don't have to choose between hospitals and schools, who try to force you into these impossible choices. And like my colleague, Assemblywoman Gonzalez Rojas just said, we were elected, myself and so many others were elected in the largest class since 1974, the largest class of new legislators. That election happened because people were demanding change. People were asking for Democrats who were going to the Capitol to actually represent them and their needs, who weren't going to make compromises. And that is so powerful and important. Up and down the ballot, across this country, people have put their trust in Democratic leadership. And what we've done with this budget in Albany is say, we've heard you. We are here to deliver for you. I want to highlight Senator Gustavo's point again. We have more than $1 billion for small business relief, fully funding our public schools, a more than a decade-long fight. We are funding excluded workers who haven't had one dime of relief throughout this entire pandemic. And we are giving people rent relief that they deserve to avoid an eviction crisis on top of the health crisis that we're dealing with. In any other year, this would have been unfathomable. Just to win one of those things would have been a tremendous victory. But so many of us are here to say that's not enough. That is not enough. Our communities have had to choose for entirely too long, and it is over. So to every Republican, every Democrat, every person who is not on our side, if you are choosing their side, know that you are in the wrong place. Yes. Know that you are in the wrong place if you are choosing their side right now. This is the moment to say, we have developed a budget that is reflective of our priorities, and never again in Albany will we make people choose between health, schools, being housed, basic necessities. Those days are over, and I am so proud to be part of this effort. I give endless thanks to all of the advocates without whom we would not be here, and I am tremendously excited about this new day and new clarity and new leadership in Albany. Thank you.
We'll take questions in just a second. We have 2 more speakers, but I do want to just give an extra round of applause to our legislators who have been fighting, because they have been fighting also in their communities. They themselves were advocates and organizers, and so they brought that energy to Albany this year, and just we're so grateful to all of you. And to speak to the organizers who have been fighting on the ground, Chinese American Planning Council works directly with communities as well as organizes communities, has been fighting for pre-K, for funds that we won, I believe, for to fight Asian American violence and prevention. Please welcome Carlin Cowan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. First off, I want to share just huge and deep gratitude to all of the organizers, the advocates, the activists, and the elected officials that brought this victory today. That shows that when we organize, we win, and I think we're just going to keep on winning. You've heard a lot about what this budget does. I want to talk for just a moment about who this budget is for, and that's the people of New York, working people, people who have been struggling over the last year, but for so much longer than that. This budget is for our community members that we serve at CPC, 60,000 New Yorkers every year, 70% of whom lost jobs or income, and many of whom were left out of any kind of federal or state relief, and we want a $2.1 billion package to support them too. This budget is for community members that called us in a panic because they were facing illegal evictions from their landlords because they were behind on rent. For our young people that not only had to navigate remote learning, but had to help their younger siblings do it too. This budget is for our essential social services workers who have been providing free food pantries without any government funding whatsoever over the last year, that had to look into the eyes of our community members and tell them that we don't have any food left for the day, but please come back tomorrow. This budget is for all of these working people, and it takes a huge first step to address the huge inequalities that have plagued New York for far too long. But let me be clear that this is just the very beginning. This is the budget we needed this year, but our communities deserve so much more. And we are going to keep fighting until we have health care and housing for all, until we have fully funded social services, immigrant justice, and everything our communities need and deserve. Because our community members, despite all of the trauma that they have endured, not just in this last year, but because of the violence of an austerity budget over the last decade in New York City and New York State, they still called their legislators, they still called the governor, they turned out to events and they said, we know that when the wealthiest among us have been gaining billions of dollars during this pandemic, that we shouldn't be suffering. And so we are going to take that energy, we are going to take everything that we've built, and we are going to keep fighting to raise the revenue and build a New York that we all deserve.
And finally, please welcome Brian O'Malley, who will speak to one of the things that we were not able to fund this year, but we will keep fighting for.
Hi, Brian O'Malley with Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Association and Caring Majority of New York. And I first want to thank all of my colleagues, legislators here today, leading such an amazing fight that sets the precedent for what we will do moving forward. This is a changed New York, and it's changed because of everyone that's here today. We were able to fund so much, but in the healthcare arena, so much still needs to be done. Home care workers throughout New York are making poverty-level wages. On July 1st, home care workers in Albany County throughout upstate New York will make $2.50 less per hour than their peers working at Burger King or McDonald's. And let me be clear, everyone deserves a living wage. But those who take care of disabled New Yorkers, those who let disabled and seniors live in the community and avoid being another statistic in our nursing homes, deserve respect, deserve a wage they can live on, and don't deserve to be going to one of the food banks throughout New York just so they can eat. Don't deserve to be reliant on government and Medicaid themselves. We are funding Medicaid with Medicaid to when home care workers have to get those services. We need universal health care throughout this state. Seniors and disabled New Yorkers who need services shouldn't have to live in poverty just so they can get them. Our disabled New Yorkers should be able to work and get the health care they need. This is not enough. This is a great start, but it is not enough, and we will be back. We will be working for the estate tax. We will be working for the capital gains tax, and we will be working to do more so that there are no choices and people can get the education they need, the housing they need, and the health care they need, and not have to choose between them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And in closing, as everybody has said here today, all of our issues are interconnected. We are no longer going to be fighting for scraps. We are grateful to our legislators here, but as Rosemary said, this is our win. This is despite Governor Cuomo, and we're gonna keep fighting. And I wanna just take a second before we take questions to thank Monica Klein. Our incredible comm strategist at Seneca Strategies for just guiding us through everything. And it has been my true pleasure to partner with you and to get to know you. So you deserve some love. So we'll take questions, probably mostly directed to our wonderful legislators here.
Wake up.
Like, I don't know what he's got to do to explain why he didn't get his way in this budget, but the fact is the budget speaks for itself. We did the right thing. We asked the people who are wealthy to contribute to our recovery. We did it in unprecedented fashion, and we haven't stopped. So he's going to say what he's going to say. We're going to say what we're going to say. Jay Jacobs doesn't have a vote on whether a budget passes or not. And the people that do decided that this is something of importance that we wanted to do to provide for those who were left out of all the aid that came from the federal government over the last year. These are the people, let's be clear. While people who were criticizing this sat at home for the last year ordering food, it was these people that took the risk with their lives and their families' lives to bring it to them, that kept our communities going over the last year when we were all privileged enough to stay at home and lock our doors. So the least we can do is make sure they get the same benefits as everybody else over the last year.
One thing, if I may, since Mr. Jacobs mentioned me directly, paraphrasing a friend of mine, I usually take my cues about what is racist from a white man. I'm just saying. I was like, thank you.
Yes. Well, I think you've heard from a number of the people who spoke the unfinished business we still have. We did not get fully across the finish line on acquisition of distressed properties to provide for homeless and people who are housing stressed, which is something I'd like to get done. I have a bill that would establish new antitrust rules in New York to take on some of these big tech companies that have been abusing small and medium-sized businesses that we're going to look at as well. One thing we did do that got lost in all the great noise of the last couple of days is we did repeal the opportunity zone tax credit that was abused by the wealthy developers in New York. To think that New York was tagging along on a Trump proposed real estate tax credit was just insane. So I'm glad we got rid of that as well. But there's no shortage of things to do. We also have to do a better job at providing for a real program like Senator Kavanaugh had to help the homeless, which came out maybe not the way some of us would have liked in the final product. But we have a lot to do between now and June, and then we have a lot to do next year as well.